famous philosophers have been Plato and Aristotle, but not many people know who Pythagoras is. Most of what we know about him is his Pythagorean theorem, which we all have been taught in grade school. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. But nobody knows really who the man was, what he did in history, and how he influenced mathematics and geometry and mysticism. He was a Greek philosopher like Plato and Aristotle, and a mathematician, and he lived around the 6th century BC to the 5th century BC, born on some island of Samos to a merchant.
Do not say a little in many words, but a great deal in a few.
So, like all great people, Pythagoras had a very humble beginning. He, as said before, was the son to a merchant and didn't come from any rich family. Yet he traveled the world and learned from many philosophers, most importantly one named Farrell, who taught him and made him thrive for discovering secrets about the mystic cults of gods. He later traveled around Egypt, Arabia, Phoenicia, Babylon, and even India in an attempt to collect all this knowledge. Throughout his travels, he learned geometry from the Egyptians as well as many other mathematical ideas which are very important today. A fun fact is that he also learned to play the lyre, which helped him learn and discover many of his musical thoughts and beliefs that we will discuss later on.
Pythagoras had 5 main beliefs. 1. That at its deepest level, reality is mathematical in nature. 2. That philosophy can be used for spiritual purification. 3. That the soul can rise to union with the divine. 4. That certain symbols have a mystical significance. And 5. That all brothers of the order should observe strict loyalty and secrecy.
Now that we are done talking about Pythagoras' background, we can actually start focusing on what he did in his life. One of the most alluring topics was his secret societies, called the Pythagorean Brotherhood. This was a secret esoteric school for select individuals where he would share his wisdom and his knowledge about mathematics and geometry. The Pythagoreans, as they were called, were his students, and they were bound by a vow not to share any of the knowledge that they gained in his school, or else there would be consequences. And we can assume with reasonable certainty that nobody broke their vow because we don't have much information about his secret society, not much about what they learnt, and not much about what they did. The Freemasons are a good example of a secret society nowadays and in the recent past who took parts of the Pythagorean Brotherhood as their building blocks in order to create their own secret society.
In the Pythagorean schools, men and women were regarded as equals. There was a common way of life, and property was communal. This included knowledge such as mathematical discoveries.
Within his secret society, there was a belief that not everyone deserved the same amount of knowledge. So there was 2 circles. The inner circle called the mathematikoi, which were the learners, and these people would learn Pythagoras' knowledge directly from him. And then there's that akousmatikoi, the listeners, who would just learn a summary of his knowledge, possibly from the mathematikoi themselves.
Some basic rules of Pythagoreanism. 1. Abstain from beans. 2. Do not pick up what has fallen. 3. Do not stir the fire with iron. 4. Do not look in a mirror beside a light.
The ways that Pythagoras would interview the members of his society is that he would invite kids and their parents to his gymnasium. And there he would ask the parents about the child and find out what they were like, how they acted around other kids. And then later on, he would make them play together. And he would watch them play at first and see their character, and he would judge what kind of person they were. And then later on, he would play with them in order to further his knowledge of the person. Later, he would listen to them laugh because this further showed him the child's willingness to have fun, the willingness to learn, and their discipline. And finally, he would look at their smile, because the smile, as he says, showed them the depths of the person's soul. So Pythagoras thought that the soul was very important. It influenced your character, and it influenced your discipline and how much knowledge you could learn. And so because of this, he believed in the transmigration of the soul, which essentially is just that after you die, your soul lives on and is just replaced in a new physical body, somewhat like reincarnation after death. And so in this way, he was a vegetarian because he thought that eating an animal would be killing some soul that he could have known in a past life.
Above the cloud with its shadow is the star with its light. Above all things, reverence thyself.
Given that the Pythagorean Brotherhood was esoteric and a secret society, it is very difficult to find out what they actually discovered with Pythagoras. Yet, given their communal knowledge, we can attribute many great discoveries to this society. A very famous figure attributed to the Pythagoreans was a triangle called the tetrad.
The first row represented 0 dimensions, a point. The second row represented 1 dimension, a line of 2 points. The third row represented 2 dimensions, a plane defined by a triangle of 3 points. The fourth row represented 3 dimensions, a tetrahedron defined by 4 points.
So even though the tetrad is a very simple figure, the Pythagoreans held it in very high regard because they had it in many of their oaths and prayers.
Bless us, divine number, thou who generated gods and men. O holy, holy tetrad, thou that containest the root and source of the eternally flowing creation. For the divine number begins with the profound pure unity, until it comes to the holy four, and it begets the mother of all, the all-compromising, all-bounding, the firstborn, the never-swerving, the never-tiring, holy ten, the keyholder of all.
So part of the tetrad's simplicity and greatness is that Pythagoras was able to pull many ratios between the points and use these to find a thing called the Pythagorean ratios, which he used in his music career to build harmony of scales, which are used even today.
The first 4 numbers symbolize the harmony of the spheres and the cosmos as 1, unity, 2, dyad, power, limit, unlimit, 3, harmony, and 4, cosmos. The 4 rows add up to 10, which was unity of a higher order, the decad. The tetraiax symbols the 4 elements, fire, air, water, and earth. The tetraiax represent the organization of space.
So Pythagoras' love of ratio and harmony in the universe, as seen through his Pythagorean ratios, led the Pythagoreans to discover something called irrational numbers, which have no ratio and can't be displayed as a fraction. And this discovery shocked him because he thought that the world had to have some sort of order and some sort of mathematical harmony in itself. And irrational numbers seem to not show this. Pythagoras' love of harmony led to his demonstration of the law of correspondence, which is seen as above, so below. He saw that everything was tied in together, and one demonstration of this was something called the harmony of the spheres, which is where he hypothesized that all the planets and all the celestial bodies that he was aware of made certain kind of notes based on the ratios of their orbits around the sun, as seen before about his love of ratios. It was not a literal audible music, but more of a esoteric, philosophical and mathematical idea. So, as Pythagoras started to study astronomy, he and his students were one of the first He did this by looking at the shadow of the Earth on the moon, and he found when the moon was in different phases and as the moon was orbiting around the Earth, he could use the different shapes of the shadow and then figure out that the Earth was actually round and not flat, which was the popular belief.
There is geometry in the humming of the strings, there is music in the spacing of the spheres.
So Pythagoras saw numbers in everything. As shown before, when he discovered irrational numbers, he later on went to discover numerology because he was convinced that numbers relied and were the root of everything. It showed that everyone had a unique vibration, and numbers were the key to finding out what these vibrations were. He used it in the same sort of way as astrology, where you would be able to find someone's personality, if they would be lucky this day or the next day, and also to show you what they were destined to do later on in life and how they would interact with others as they went about their daily lives. One of Pythagoras' famous quotes was, "All is number." And this just reinforces the fact that he had a very huge love of numbers and mathematics and wanted to show that everything was tied back to his discoveries using numbers. Pythagoras thought that every number from 1 through 9 had a specific meaning.
1. Individual, aggressor, self, leadership, yang, beginning of cycle.
2. Balance, union, receptive, partnership, yin.
3. Communication, interaction, self-expression, innovative skills.
4. Order, construction, pragmatism.
5. Action, restlessness, life experience.
6. Home, family, responsibility.
7. Thought, consciousness, spirit, observer.
8. Power, authority, achievement, execution of plans.
9. Highest level of changes, completion, end of cycle.
So Pythagoras died before the great philosopher Plato was even born, yet his influence on him is seen throughout many of Plato's philosophies and many of his later theories. Plato based his Republic on Pythagoras' school, and he also taught a select few of Pythagoras' views and helped share the knowledge that Pythagoras accrued throughout his illustrious career. So Plato, just as Pythagoras, saw the importance in mathematics and abstract thinking in further philosophical thought and esoteric ideas. They both were similar in the fact that they had tightly organized societies and secret societies, as well as that they controlled a lot of the knowledge that they had, and they didn't share it with everybody. And also, they both had a very mystical and esoteric approach to the idea of the soul and the importance it had in a person's life. Pythagoras was a man of mystery. He was a very passive man. He did not believe in war, terror, or violence. And he was also a communal man, yet still esoteric, and did not share many of his ideas with many other people. Because of this, we do not know the extent of his contributions to the world, but we can believe with some certainty that a lot of his ideas have been passed down to the present through philosophy, mathematics, geometry, and astronomy, as well as numerology. So what Pythagoras left behind was not only his ideas in these areas, but also a way of life.